All right. Sorry about the little delay there, folks. Today we're doing a live stream. We're talking about social distancing. If this happens to be backward, I'm sorry. It's a new phone. Still working on the settings. So, with the situation that we currently find ourselves in, this has become the watchword of the day: is social distancing, especially in public service sector. So, as police officers and security guards, a lot of you watching the channel, people have sent me messages asking about some strategies to enact social distancing measures to lower the risk to ourselves and to the public of all these interactions that we have to have every day. Because as cops and security guards, it's kind of our job to interact with people. Hopefully, if you're a security guard, you are somewhere where you're not having to interact with people every day because the facility you're at is closed or mostly closed. But if you're working security somewhere where you're an essential workforce, you kind of have a problem on your hand. Now, all of us cops have a problem on our hands because our job is to go interact with the public all day, every day. And the way that we interact with the public every day often means getting very close with them and having to have close conversations, going into people's houses, handling things back and forth, handing things back and forth with people. And that can create a situation where we could potentially be transmitting things back and forth to each other, which is the issue that we're having right now. So, on top of the recommendations that doctors are giving, and using those recommendations, what type of strategies can we have to limit the risk to ourselves and the public when we're interacting with the public in a professional manner as a cop or a security guard? Well, one is that anything that we pass back and forth, obviously it would be great if we were wearing gloves. Hopefully everyone has a huge stockpile of rubber gloves so that we're not touching something that could possibly be infected and then touching our eye or eating or something like that. So if we're interacting with someone and we're taking things back and forth, it's a good idea to wear gloves. And even if you are wearing gloves, use that hand sanitizer, especially if you have it. I know it's hard to get right now. Hopefully everybody that's a cop sitting in a car has a big tub of it, because we always have big tubs of it in the car. And if you're in the building doing something, every time you interact with somebody at the front desk or you interact with somebody in lockup, wash your hands, get a good scrub, and follow those recommendations of how to wash your hands. Beyond that, a lot of agencies are going to online reporting of non-critical matters. Non-critical matters meaning anything that does not require an armed agent of the government to come out to your house, you can report it online. So your thefts, especially identity thefts, things like that, they don't want people in the front lobby of the station. They don't want to be sending a cop out to talk with those people. They would rather you just be able to report it online. If there's nothing for us to observe and there's nothing for us to interact with, there's no reason for us to be out there interacting with you and causing bigger problems than they have to be. So if online reporting exists in your community, in Chicago, it exists. You can do most of your stuff through online reporting. Do that if you have to. And when people call and ask about things, or if you're interacting with people on the street and they ask you about something like, hey, listen, the social distancing thing with what's going on right now, that sounds like something you can report online. Refer them to that website where you can report it online. Window reports, same thing, for stuff that people have to come do in person because it's the law in your state. They have to come do crash reports in person. We want to limit the number of people in our lobby so they have enough room to stand apart from each other, and we want to do stuff through a window if that's possible. You know the circumstances in your station better than I do. Where we're at, we've got bulletproof glass with a hole in it, and we can talk back and forth through that. And we've got doors that we can lock people in and out. So we have to buzz people in, buzz people out. And so we can limit the number of people that we're letting into the building at a time to come make reports and then do that report through glass. We have to understand that a lot of this is I interact with 200 people a day, and I'm trying to minimize that interaction. If you're the type of person that's staying at home, I don't want to infect you if I already have it. I might not know that I have it, and I don't want to infect you. So these are for everybody's safety, really. Window reports are a good option. We've been utilizing that a lot at work. Hopefully it's been working. Working from the car where possible. So there's lots of things that ordinarily I would go out and I'd be talking with someone and I'd take their driver's license and I'd take down their information, and then I would, go look at whatever they're looking at. We'd stand there, we'd have a discussion and all that, and then I'd go back to the station and do the report, or I'd go sit in my car and I'd do the report. There are methods that we can work from the car that minimizes the interaction space. If it's something where, hey, somebody broke out the window of my car. Great. Pull up, roll the passenger side window down a little bit, use a glove, take that ID, take a picture of it, hand that ID back, take the glove off, fire up the computer system, get that report ready to be generated. What's a couple good phone numbers for you? Type those in first. then import all the other information, and we're off and on our way with minimal interaction between me and the person. We only open up the window that much. So that way, we're not having, people's breath and spittle and whatever else between the two of us coming back and forth into the car. Trying to minimize those types of interactions. And then I can give that person whatever number they want, tell them, hey, get a pen, maybe write this down on your hand, or we hand the card if we have to, but I prefer not to do that. And we work out methods that we can get the stuff that we need done without having to transmit things back and forth. And then when I'm done typing into that keyboard and I give them their number, whatever reference they want for it, I then, use hand sanitizer, throw that glove away, use hand sanitizer on my hand, tell them God bless, and be done with my day, at least with them. So working from the car can work, but you have to understand those universal precautions in order for that to be effective. We don't want to just work from the car because it's easier than having to get up and go into the house. But obviously, I don't want to go into somebody's house where, their grandma or their kids are in there, and those people don't want me in their house if I'm interacting with a couple hundred people a day. So working from the car, at the very least, we want to work from outside so that we're not transmitting things to people in their house, and we're not going into people's houses where somebody could be infected. We still got a job to do, but we got to do it smartly. And lastly, triaging calls from outside. I actually learned this from one of our new guys. I was on a call a couple days ago, and it was called in as a domestic. And Grandma opened up the door for us. Come on in. Woo! Why don't you tell me what's going on first? Well, my son, who's 30, I don't want him here anymore because he won't follow house rules. I want him out. And we're like, well, that's not the way it works here. You got to have him evicted. We really can't do anything about that. That's a civil matter between you and him. Oh, really? Yeah. And also, I don't want to go into your house to have to, argue back and forth with you guys about this because, we're trying to do the social distancing thing because we interact with 50, 60, a couple hundred people a day, and we don't want to be coming into your house if we don't have to, especially at your age, Grandma. And she's like, oh, that's a good point. So go to the courthouse tomorrow, see about an eviction. But in the meantime, we don't want to get involved with anything we don't have to because we don't want to, we don't want to get you sick in case we're sick because we wouldn't know because it's like 2 weeks before you find out that you're sick. Say, oh, that makes sense. So something else to think about. Obviously, if we have PPE, we want to use it. The recommendations have stayed fairly uniform with PPE and with washing procedures. Every time you're at a sink, you're back at the station, wash your hands. Try to stay out of the hospitals. I know that our jobs bring us into hospitals frequently, but I've had instances where we had car crashes, somebody went to the hospital, go to up to the nurse and be like, hey, could you get me that guy's information so we don't even have to have me back there? And they're like, yes, totally. We can totally do that. We don't want anybody back here because they don't want anybody back there making life more difficult for them. So some things to think about. And so we're going to go to the comments and questions on the stream and see if you guys have any recommendations. This is just what we've come up with at work over the last couple of weeks to try to mitigate some of the concerns. So taking the things that medical professionals are telling us and then implement them in our job as best ways as possible using the resources that we have. Explorer Dietrich says, just wash your hands and be healthy. Washing your hands is huge. Washing your hands is huge. That's the recommendation that everybody's given us. Wash your hands a lot. Unfortunately, if I'm going from call to call to call and there's no sink in my car, it makes it difficult to just wash your hands all the time. I can go into businesses, but now lots of businesses are closed. Lots of the places that I could go to just wash my hands are closed. And when I do that, I'm going into a place with other people, pulling door handles and stuff that everybody's touching to wash my hands. And I don't know whether that's counterproductive or not, but it's something I'd rather not do if I don't have to. So if I can completely avoid interaction as much as possible, then that kind of minimizes my need to be going into businesses and then making more interactions to wash my hands. Ideally, we would go on a call, we'd get done, we'd go into the station, go to the slop sink, scrub our hands, and then go back out to another call, but that's not always possible. Steve Dave says, put up a sign in the guard booth, please wait outside, see about 100 truckers a day. That's a good idea. Like I said, if you can do something outside and at a distance, What we've seen in a lot of places is they'll put a line on the ground and a sign that says, please stand behind red line, and they slide the window open, do whatever interaction they have to do from 6 to 10 feet away, fill out their form. Sometimes it's more work to fill the forms out because they have to verbally tell you what's going on instead of being able to just hand an ID back and forth. But hey, it's worth it if we're helping out the situation. Explorer Dietrich says, this is not the epidemic that is made out to be. Let me tell you something. I'm not a doctor, but I spend most of my life trying to keep from getting hurt. And if doctors are telling me, hey, this is serious, you need to do this, I'm going to do it. This isn't a political issue at all for me. The politics of it, we can hash that out 6-8 months down the road when we see how all this hashes out, right? And if it turns out that it wasn't a big deal, then it wasn't a big deal. But in the meantime, I'm treating it like it's a big deal until I know otherwise. Matt V says, I've been washing my hands with any contact lately. So that's very good advice. And if you don't have proper PPE or you have limited PPE and it's being like rationed out to you, that's the best you can do. Andrew Levinsky says, I'm security police at a hospital. We are on lockdown and not allowing any visitors unless there are extenuating circumstances. Right here, all the hospitals I've been in have said, one visitor per patient, period. Not like at a time, but like per patient, period, to minimize interactions. I can totally see where they would want to do that. And I would rather not be that visitor if I can avoid it, especially a couple times a day, having to go in and out of the hospital with people for, accidents or arrests or whatever. If I can just avoid having to go in there at all, that's what I do. Sergeant Sly says, I've had to temporarily suspend my practice of licking people's IDs. It's simply horrid. Oh my goodness, so terrible. Brush Some Teeth says, do you miss having a beard? Would you grow a beard on vacation? I can grow a beard on my vacation. About a week, I have a pretty good beard going, but it's sometimes just not worth it because then I have a beard and then I have to shave it again. And shaving off a beard is a pain in the butt. Cyan Wolf says, I like the idea of taking an ID with a glove and just taking a picture. It's worked out really well. If you can have, like I have my old phone that isn't connected to the internet or anything anymore. And if I can use that to just take a picture and be done, perfect. It works really well for traffic accidents too. If you just take a picture of the vital information and get them all on their way, then you don't have people out there arguing back and forth with each other. Sophia Leguer says, are you enforcing more or less traffic violations due to what's going on? I mean, it's kind of relative since I don't do a lot of traffic to start with. But we are trying to limit the interactions that we have with motorists. Everybody has been told to limit the interactions with motorists. Obviously, if there's something that's reckless or negligent or we think somebody's going to get hurt, obviously we're going to do something about that. That's their job. That's what we're there for. But a lot of the, let's say, more routine stuff, a lot of the traffic grants that are going on aren't going on anymore. Sophia Leguer says, how often do you disinfect your patrol car? What we've been doing lately is because wet wipes are kind of a problem and getting Clorox wipes. We used to Clorox wipe the car out like once a week. Especially the back seat gets really nasty. What we did is we mixed bleach bottles, actually the fire department mixed up a bunch of bleach bottles, and then every day we pour them out and get new ones, or pour new bleach in the bottle. And then we've been using those to spritz down the cars and the counters and everything at work. Luckily, our floors, we got rid of carpet a little while ago, so we don't have to worry about the carpet anymore. So we've got a lot of hard surfaces, and we've just been spray bleaching everything. Sergeant Sly says, we've raised the bar for arrest. If a non-traffic citation will suffice, then we do that. We're getting hearing a lot of reports of people of more cite and release going on for nonviolent offenses. And, that's a good idea. The last thing we need is 25 idiots in our lockup who we then can't transport to county because it takes 4 hours to book them in, which is what I'm hearing right now here, is it's taking a significant amount of time because we have to screen everybody before they go into county. Obviously, department policies are going to vary on that. Chris says, if I got to go out, would you recommend carrying many changes of gloves? I would recommend not going out. We've been pretty successful here in my household with door dashing stuff. And the DoorDash drivers around here have been very good about, wearing gloves and all of that. So I would prefer just not to go out to get delivery if I can. We go out once a week to get groceries, or I'll pick up groceries if I have to. And in those circumstances, I just try to find whatever store has the fewest people in them. Rubber gloves are a good idea, but hand washing. If you have, with rubber gloves, if you think there's a possibility if you have to change them, just change them. And that's the way it's always been, right? Like if the good thing about white rubber gloves is you can see stuff on them. If they're dirty, they look like you need to change them, you just change them. Because rubber gloves are cheap. Asking about auxiliary and reserve officers. We don't have those here right now. Chris Slate says, have you noticed or do you expect an influx of domestic calls due to people being stuck at home with each other? I wouldn't say an influx of domestic calls. I haven't looked at the numbers, but it does seem like there's a slight tick up in people being irritated with each other. And there's a new thing people are angry at with domestics. I'm seeing more people angry that one person won't just stay at home, that they want to go out. Normally young people, teenagers or early 20s, early 30s, people still living in grandma's basement that, he just wants to go out and play all day and he doesn't understand that this is serious. And that's like, we get some domestics with that. So I'm sure there's a slight uptick of that, but I mean, would those people be having domestics anyway if it wasn't for this? Possible. FVZZ1 says, have you noticed an increase in damages done to emergency vehicles and or nurses' cars at hospitals here in the UK? That's been a massive problem. No, I haven't seen that where I'm at. I haven't heard anything about that either. And we're getting to the end of the stream here. That looks like about it. Hopefully, because this is just good, solid advice that came from doctors and we're watering down to the public, we won't have any problems with YouTube in this video. If we do, I'm sorry, did the best that I could. Hopefully also this flips around in the final version of the video. I may have to play the settings on my phone to get, this flipped around so that you can read it properly if you can't read it now. Until next week, guys, be safe. Take care of each other. Wash your hands. Wear the gloves. Stay away from people.